My mom called the morning after Aunt June's funeral and said, "You're not seriously keeping all that money, right? Kevin needs it more." Like I'd accidentally picked up someone else's inheritance. Like I owed it to them to give it back. I always thought Aunt June's house smelled like lemon furniture polish and menthol cough drops. Even in summer. The kind of place where the air feels still, like it's waiting. That's where I was when I got the call. Sitting on her faded floral couch, sorting through unpaid property taxes and old grocery receipts, when my phone lit up. Mom. Should have let it go to voicemail. Instead, I picked up, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "You're not seriously keeping all that money, right?" "No." "How are you holding up?" "No." "She loved you, you know." Just straight to business. "Kevin needs it more." Her voice wasn't angry, just matter of fact. Like it was a logistical mistake I'd picked up something meant for someone else. Like she was doing me a favor by correcting it. And that's when it started to crack open. Whatever tightly lidded thing I've kept buried for years. Let me back up. I'm Jamie, 32, IT project manager. Monthly car payment, $289.68. Student loan balance, $34,211.76. Favorite grocery store coffee brand, store brand Colombian dark roast, 2 for $5 on Tuesdays. Not that anyone's ever asked. Because in my family, Kevin is the headline. Always has been. My older brother could charm the devil into buying sunscreen. High school prom king, kicked out of college twice. Visionary entrepreneur with 5 failed ventures and 1 wildly successful GoFundMe campaign to cover unexpected business setbacks. Translation, unpaid credit card debt and a ski trip. He's also the only person I know who once convinced our parents to co-sign a $25,000 loan for a gluten-free food truck. He doesn't cook. Didn't even have a license at the time. Guess who refinanced his car to help cover the last $4,000 when the truck got repossessed? Spoiler, not Kevin. I've been useful, quiet, always the reasonable one. The one who drove Dad to his follow-ups after the bypass surgery while Kevin was between gigs in Tulum. The one who covered Mom's dental implant payments when the insurance claim fell through. $216 a month. For 14 months. Never once late. They said thank you once. Maybe. I honestly don't remember. Anyway, Aunt June. She wasn't flashy, but she noticed things. She remembered how I liked my coffee. Black, no sugar. Sent me $50 each birthday with a note in perfect cursive. And once told me I had a gentle steadiness that people rely on, even when they don't say so. She also didn't trust banks and kept most of her savings in a fireproof box beneath her bed. I found it last week, wrapped in plastic with a post-it that just said, "For Jamie," because someone has to finally live their own damn life. The will confirmed it. Everything, her house, the cash, her retirement accounts, was mine. No caveats, no hidden clauses, no mention of Kevin. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Then I remembered her voice, flat and sharp like dry kindling. "You spend your whole life cleaning up other people's messes. That's not living, Jamie. That's surviving." I didn't tell anyone at first. I just sat in her kitchen, staring at the curling vinyl floor and that plastic container of powdered creamer she never used, but always kept on the counter. Then I went home and waited for the fallout. It didn't take long. The next day, Mom called. Then Dad. Then Kevin, though his message was just, "Hey man, let's talk. You know I've been going through a lot." As if the past decade had just been one long, vague inconvenience. They weren't subtle. Mom talked about fairness, how Kevin had struggled more. She asked if I'd considered putting the money into a shared family account, just until he gets back on his feet. Said I didn't need a house in the suburbs anyway. I rent a perfectly fine apartment, don't I? Dad floated the idea of me taking out a small home equity loan to help bridge the gap for Kevin's latest startup. He wouldn't even need the full inheritance, just some of it. Enough for breathing room. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. Instead, I did what I've always done. Listened, nodded, changed the subject. Went back to work, answered Slack messages, kept my head down. But every time I open Aunt June's front door and smell that mix of lemon and old paper, something shifts. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not being asked. I'm being told that this gift, this escape hatch, is not really mine. That my role hasn't changed just because she gave me a way out. And I'm so tired. I haven't told anyone that I moved some of the funds into a private account, or that I've started calculating what it would take to fix up the house. New roof, updated wiring, maybe even a small vegetable garden out back like she always wanted. I don't know what I'll do yet. But yesterday I stood in her old bedroom, looked at that fireproof box, and felt something I couldn't name. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't joy. It was the terrifying, unfamiliar idea that maybe I don't have to be the one who always bends. Maybe for once I could just stand still. The first time I lent Kevin money, I was 23 and stupidly proud of my credit score. He called me from a number I didn't recognize. Said his phone was off because Verizon was being dramatic about a missed bill. He needed $600 for rent just until his client paid out. I didn't ask what client. I just wired the money and skipped groceries for the week. That's how it started. Small asks wrapped in big promises. And every time I helped, I thought maybe this was the last time. Maybe this would turn things around for him. It never did. But I kept showing up, because that's what you do when you're the stable one. You patch the roof, even when no one else notices the leak. This week, Kevin showed up in person. I was at Aunt June's house, standing in the living room with a mug of stale coffee, staring at the dust outline where her recliner used to be. The doorbell rang. I didn't have to check. I knew. Kevin still looked like he always did. Unshaven, hoodie too big, the same borrowed charisma that used to get him out of speeding tickets and into people's wallets. "Hey, man," he said, flashing that grin. "We gotta talk." He walked in like it was his name on the deed. I stayed by the door, cup still in my hand. He talked fast. He always does when he's selling something. Something about an app this time. Something to do with ethical investing for Gen Z. No code yet, no developer. Just a domain name and a dream. He just needed a little help to get it off the ground. 15 grand would get us through MVP, he said, like I should have already known. Then he put a hand on my shoulder. I mean, June would have wanted us both to succeed, right? I almost laughed. Instead, I looked at the faded rug under my feet. The one Aunt June duct-taped at the corner so it wouldn't curl up and trip her. The one Kevin probably never noticed. "Did you know she left me everything?" I asked, quiet. He blinked. "Yeah, Mom told me. Said you'd do the right thing." There it was again. The assumption. That I'd fold. That I'd keep playing my part. The financially responsible understudy to his life of improv. I didn't respond. Just walked into the kitchen, ran water into my mug, dumped it out, and stared at the sink. A thin line of rust circled the drain. June hated that sink. Said it made her feel like the house was scolding her every time it gurgled. "I don't know," I finally said. "It's complicated." He nodded like he understood. He didn't. He started telling me how tight things were. How he was behind on rent again. How his last freelance client ghosted him. How the girl he was seeing moved out, took the cat, and half the silverware. "I mean, I'm not asking for a handout," he said. "This is an investment. You'd get equity." Equity. I wanted to ask what he thought I'd spent the last decade giving him. What the return was supposed to be on 7,000 silent dollars and 3 missed vacations because of his emergencies. But I didn't. I just said I'd think about it. He clapped me on the back. "I knew you would. You've always had my back." When he left, the house felt smaller, quieter, like it was holding its breath. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder from the lawyer again. Assets, liabilities, tax implications, notes in June's handwriting. House needs foundation work. "Don't skimp on insulation. The neighbor's dog will dig up your tomatoes if you don't fence them." I stared at her signature. Firm. No nonsense. She meant for me to have this. Not just the money, the space, the choice, but guilt is a hell of a leash. Later that night, Mom called again. Asked if I'd had a chance to talk with Kevin. I said yes. She paused, then said, "So? You're going to help, right?" "You always help." That word stuck with me. Always. Like helping was a fixed part of my biology. Like choosing differently would be unnatural. I told her I hadn't decided yet. She sighed. "You know how hard it's been for him." I wanted to ask if she knew how hard it's been for me. Like when I maxed out my card to cover Kevin's ER visit after he tried to jump his motorcycle over a backyard fire pit. Or when I lent Dad $2,000 for a roof repair, and he used it to help Kevin settle a DUI fine. But I didn't say any of that. I just said I needed time. After we hung up, I sat in the dark and listened to the creak of Aunt June's old ceiling fan turning slowly overhead. One blade always clicked. She called it the house thinking. And maybe it was. Maybe it was asking the same thing I was. What if I don't help this time? What if I let it all fall? Kevin, the expectations, the old dynamics. What if I finally stopped being who they needed and started being who I needed? The thought felt dangerous. Like standing on the edge of something. I'm not ready to jump yet, but I am leaning. Aunt June used to say the kitchen was the only place people told the truth. Not the living room, too performative. Not the porch, too nosy. But in the kitchen, people let their guard down. Maybe it was the smell of onions and butter, or the way steam fogged up the windows, made the world feel smaller. I've been spending a lot of time in her kitchen lately. The walls are this washed-out yellow that probably looked cheerful in the 80s. Now just tired. The linoleum curls at the corners. Her magnet collection's still on the fridge. Places she never went but liked the sound of. Sedona, Savannah, Bar Harbor. I came here today to sort through the paperwork, to make sense of the insurance policies and bank accounts and figure out what it means to actually inherit something. Instead, I've been sitting at the kitchen table staring at a half-eaten tuna sandwich and a legal pad with "call plumber" written 10 times in a row. She had a slow leak under the sink, and she hated the idea of paying someone else to fix it. I could relate. I finally logged into the account the lawyer helped me set up. The numbers are uncomfortable, not massive. We're not talking yachts and private jets, but enough. Enough to pay off my loans, fix up the house, maybe even quit the job I secretly hate, and figure out what I actually want to do. If it weren't for the other numbers in my head, Kevin's debts, Mom's emergencies, Dad's endless bridging loans, I might have allowed myself a moment of peace. Instead, I spent the afternoon doing math I never wanted to do. How much would it cost to keep being the dependable one? Kevin had texted again. Just a quick, "Did you think about our talk? This could be huge, man." Seriously. No details. No follow-up. Just that vague Kevin brand optimism that somehow made me feel like the bad guy for needing specifics. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet and listed everything I'd loaned him over the years. The tally made my stomach hurt. $600 for rent, $1,500 for a business opportunity, $3,200 for a used car down payment, never registered in his name, $2,000 for emergency dental work after he got punched at a bar. It went on. $11,000, give or take. Never once repaid. And somehow, here I was, being asked for more. Not by him, by everyone. Mom called again this morning, chipper and rehearsed. She'd baked muffins. Wanted me to come by. I could use your help going over the electric bill, she said, as if I hadn't already paid it twice this year when she forgot. When I got there, Kevin was already in the kitchen, perched at the counter like a teenager waiting for a ride. Mom acted surprised, but I saw the second mug already set out for him, hazelnut creamer, his favorite. You boys need to talk, she said, nudging me toward him like I was 10 again and needed reminding to play nice. Kevin launched into his pitch again. Same tone, same ask, same manipulative optimism. Only this time he slid a napkin across the counter with a number scribbled on it. $25,000. No explanation. Just that number. I looked at him, then at Mom, who suddenly busied herself wiping down an already clean counter. That was the moment. The moment I realized it wasn't just him. It never had been. They didn't expect me to help. They expected me to comply. Because I always had. Because the idea of me saying no didn't even register as a real possibility. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm out. I just stood, walked to the fridge, and stared at the magnets. There was one that said, "Life begins at the edge of your comfort zone." June's handwriting was on the back. She'd written, "But don't forget to pack snacks." I took the napkin, folded it in half. "I'll let you know," I said, and walked out. No promises, no apologies. I didn't look back. You ever notice how silence gets heavy when people expect something from you? Not angry silence, not awkward silence, but that loaded, sugar-coated silence where everyone's waiting for you to be the version of yourself they like best. Cooperative, agreeable, quietly generous. That's been the vibe all week. Mom's texting me recipes she just thought I'd like. Dad sent me an old picture of the three of us at a fishing dock, me holding a sunfish like it was a trophy. Kevin hasn't texted since the napkin incident trademark, but posted some vague quote on Instagram. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding you back. Classy. Meanwhile, I've been back at Aunt June's house, scraping dead ivy off the back fence and pretending manual labor is a form of therapy. There's something calming about physical work when your head's a mess. That fence has been half swallowed by vines for years. She used to say, "It's not hurting anybody, let it be." But I think she secretly hated how it made the house look tired. There's a rot in the back post. Gonna have to replace it. Not immediately, but soon. Which is kind of how everything feels right now. Wobbly, weathered, still technically standing. I've been taking stock. Not just financially, but emotionally. Trying to trace back when my life became less mine and more triage for everyone else's fires. There was this one night I keep circling back to. 5 years ago. Kevin had just blown through another job, some marketing gig he swore was rigged against creatives. He crashed on my couch for a week that turned into 4. I was working 60-hour weeks, barely sleeping, and came home one night to find him shirtless on the couch, Xbox controller in hand, eating my last microwavable lasagna. I stood there, holding a bag of groceries I couldn't afford, and said, "You okay helping with the electric bill this month?" He looked up and said, "You're better with money, dude. It'd stress me out." And I said nothing, just nodded, like it made sense. It didn't. But saying nothing is how you keep the peace. It's how you become indispensable and invisible at the same time. Fast forward to now, and I'm being asked to give up a house I didn't ask for, and a financial lifeline I never imagined having, to protect someone who never learned to stand on his own. This morning I met with the contractor June used for minor repairs. He remembered her, called her the one who made me lunch even when she was only hiring me to replace a screen door. We walked through the house. He gave me a rough estimate on fixing the foundation, plumbing, and replacing the ancient water heater. 25 to 30 grand, easy, he said. But you'd have something solid when we're done. Solid. I've never had that. Not really. I've had leases, temp jobs, backup plans. I've had roles. The good son, the peacemaker, the wallet. But I've never had something solid. And now I might. I'm not sure I'm ready to fight for it. But I am done apologizing for wanting it. After the contractor left, I sat in the living room with a cup of bad coffee and tried to imagine a life where I didn't flinch every time the phone rang. What would it look like to not owe anyone anything? What would it feel like to wake up in a house that's mine, fully mine, without strings or expectations? Later today, I'm supposed to have dinner with the family. Just casual, Mom said. No pressure. We haven't all been together in a while. That's not true. We were all together at the funeral. But grief throws a veil over everything. Hides the rot. Makes you nostalgic. This will be different. I know what they're hoping for. One big family dinner full of unspoken agendas and baked ziti. A quiet moment where I say, "Of course I'll help. I always help." They might be in for a surprise. Because I'm starting to think silence doesn't have to mean surrender. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone finally drawing a line. Dinner was at 6. I showed up at 6:18. Not late enough to make a statement, but not early enough to help Mom set the table. A small rebellion. The kind only I would notice. The kind she'd passive-aggressively mention in 2 weeks with a tight smile. Kevin was already there, of course. Sitting at the head of the table like he was born into it. Wearing a too-tight collared shirt, and the grin he saves for when he thinks he's winning. Dad greeted me with a stiff pat on the back and a line about traffic, even though I lived 12 minutes away. The air smelled like garlic bread and manipulation. The dining room hadn't changed. Same lace runner down the table. Same chipped serving dish shaped like a cornucopia. The wallpaper peeled slightly in the corner behind Kevin. An old wound no one bothered fixing. We sat, ate, chewed through conversation like it was slightly overcooked meat. "How's the house?" Mom finally asked, buttering a roll that didn't need butter. Her tone was too light. "It's good. Getting it assessed for some repairs." Dad nodded like he approved. "Smart. You'll get a good return on that place if you ever decide to sell." There it was. If you ever decide to sell. Kevin jumped in, of course. "I've been thinking," he said, like the idea had come to him during the salad course. "Instead of splitting things up, maybe we invest together. Family venture, real estate, fix and flip." I didn't respond. He pushed on. "You've got the house. I've got the ideas. We could make something out of it. Build a legacy, you know." Mom chimed in. "June would have loved that, keeping it in the family." I stared at the candle in the center of the table, vanilla scented, flickering slightly. "No," I said. It came out quietly, but the air shifted. Kevin laughed, short, surprised. "No to what?" "No to that. To selling. To investing. To legacies I didn't sign up for." Mom blinked. "Sweetheart, we're just trying to help you make the most of this opportunity." "You mean your opportunity?" Silence. Dad cleared his throat. "Nobody's trying to take anything from you, Jamie." I looked at him. "Then why does it feel like I'm being robbed every time we talk about this?" No one answered. I stood slowly, pushed my chair in. My plate was half full. I wasn't hungry anymore. "I'm not doing this," I said. "Not tonight. Maybe not ever." Kevin opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "I've got years of examples of what helping you gets me, Kev. I don't need another one." Mom's face hardened. "You're making this about money." "No," I said. "You are. I'm making this about boundaries." I left before anyone could try to guilt me into dessert. On the way home, I didn't feel triumphant. Just hollow. Like I'd removed a piece of myself I used to need to survive. But underneath the emptiness, something else flickered. Not pride, not anger. Maybe space. Room, finally, for something new. The next morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls and a voicemail from Mom that started with, "I'm not mad, just disappointed," and somehow got worse from there. Kevin had texted too. Just one line. "Guess we know where your priorities are." I didn't reply. Instead, I made coffee in Aunt June's old percolator, the one that wheezes like it's got a pack-a-day habit, and sat on the porch steps, watching the fog roll off the yard like smoke from something just extinguished. I expected guilt to follow, that old familiar ache in the ribs, but it didn't come. What came was something quieter. Not peace exactly, but the beginning of distance. By noon, I'd made a decision. I called the lawyer. "I want to move forward," I said. "Renovations, full title transfer, whatever needs doing to make the house fully mine." There was a pause. Then, "All right, Jamie, I'll send over the next steps." He didn't say congratulations. He didn't have to. I hung up and sat in the kitchen, looking around like I was seeing the place for the first time. Same wallpaper, same creaky drawers, but different now, because it was no longer a symbol of my guilt. It was mine. And just like that, I started moving things in. Not much, just the essentials. My coffee mugs, a box of books, a lamp I've had since college. I stripped the bed in the guest room and aired out the closet, ordered new sheets, measured the windows for curtains. I didn't tell anyone. Not out of spite, out of necessity. This was a secret I needed to keep for just a little longer. Not because they'd stop me, but because they'd try. And I wasn't sure I could stomach one more performance of concern laced with expectation. That night, I sat in June's living room with a frozen dinner and a repair manual I didn't understand. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Until my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Mom. "Your aunt would be ashamed. This isn't who she raised you to be." I stared at it for a long time. Not angry, not hurt, just tired. I didn't respond. I opened the Notes app instead and typed a single line. Maybe this is exactly who she hoped I'd become. It was raining the morning Kevin showed up at Aunt June's house. Not a light, cinematic drizzle. Real rain. The kind that smacks your windshield like it's trying to wake you up. I heard the tires crunch over wet gravel before I saw his car. Same beat-up Civic. Same mismatched side mirror from that accident he swore wasn't technically his fault. I didn't go outside. Just stood behind the curtain, holding my mug like a shield. Coffee had gone cold. Didn't matter. Kevin didn't get out at first. Just sat there with the engine running, looking at the porch like he was calculating something. I half expected him to drive off. But then he opened the door. No umbrella. Hoodie soaked through in seconds. Sneakers slapping against the puddled walkway. I opened the door but didn't move from the threshold. He looked up. Wet hair stuck to his forehead. Hey, I just want to talk," he said. "Then talk." He shifted, glanced past me into the hallway. His eyes landed on the coat hooks by the door. June's old raincoat still hanging there like she might come in any second. "I'm not here to argue," he said, "or ask for anything." "Okay," he swallowed. "It's about Mom." That landed. I didn't move, but something in my chest tightened. "She slipped," he said. "In the kitchen. Yesterday. Tile floor was wet. She hit her head. Ambulance came. I waited. She's okay." I mean, mostly. She's awake, confused. They did a CT scan just in case. Found something. My throat went dry. Something. A mass, he said. They think it's been growing for a while. Doctor said it's serious. Aggressive. The rain came down harder. I could barely hear the wind chimes from the porch over the sound of it now. She asked for you, he said. Woke up, looked at me, and asked where you were. I didn't say anything. She didn't say my name first, he added, quieter. Just yours. That twisted something I didn't want to name. She's scared, man, he said. Really scared, and He trailed off. Looked down at the porch boards. I'm not great in hospitals. I thought maybe you could come. I nodded slowly. Okay. He blinked. Yeah? Yeah, I said. He stepped back, like the tension in his shoulders had finally cracked a little. Rain dripping from his sleeves. I'm not asking for anything, he said again. Just didn't want to do this part alone. He turned to go, feet squelching down the steps. I watched him reach the car, fumble with the keys, start the engine, and I just stood there, hand on the doorknob. He reversed slowly, backed out of the drive, his headlights cutting across the overgrown bushes June always meant to trim. I closed the door, locked it, set my phone on the counter, screen still lit from his last message, then unplugged the landline from the wall, sat down, and started eating a bowl of cold cereal, alone, in silence, as the rain kept falling.